Hello and welcome to the Good Girl Confessional podcast. I am, of course, your host, Sandy Lowres, and the Good Girl Confessional podcast is proudly brought to us by WB40, Women Beyond 40 magazine and platform, and we are soon to release our WB40 in Business magazine. Keep an eye out for that. You can check us out at WB40.com. Today in the podcast, I am incredibly honoured to chat with our very, very special guest, Sam Bloom. Sam is an extraordinary human being who has gone through an extraordinary amount in her life. Her life changed forever when, on a family holiday in Thailand in 2013, she leant on a railing and sadly the railing broke and Sam would fall. Her life has been fraught with many challenges since then. However, Sam has gone on to become a champion parasurfer and a canoeist. She is quite a brilliant athlete, but she is also the subject of an extraordinarily beautiful film starring Naomi Watts called Penguin Bloom. An unlikely little creature that came into Sam's life would help her very much to heal as well. It's an ongoing journey, of course, but we are so excited to welcome Sam here into the confessional. Please welcome her, Sam Bloom. Hello, Sam, and welcome to the confessional. I'm thrilled to have you here.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
I was just saying to you off air, I was fangirling a little bit, telling you that I've been a huge fan of yours for quite a long time. And your beautiful book, which is here, for those who can see this, it's called Heartache and Birdsong. It's a best-selling book and it's beautiful. And it's
thank you.
A bit of a love affair here with your beautiful Magpie penguin. Beautiful. So thank you so much for joining us. You've had such an extraordinary life and an extraordinary journey. And I really want to talk to you about all of it, but there's so much of it to talk about. So I guess I want to start with something pretty incredible, which is that your journey has led you to be a champion athlete, that you've won, I hope I've got this right, correct me if I'm wrong, so 2 golds and 1 bronze.
Yes.
As in the World Parasurfing Championships, and you have represented Australia in para canoeing as well.
Yes. Yeah, no, it's pretty cool.
It's extremely cool. Congratulations.
Well, thank you. Yeah, no, it's pretty exciting, I think, representing your country. I mean, never in a million years would I have ever thought I would have the chance to do that.
And it's such an extraordinary story on how you came to be a world champion athlete and an athlete on a world stage. It's so can we go back for those who don't know your story and let's have a chat about Sam Bloom and how you sort of got to this stage. So you've always been a really outdoorsy kind of chick.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I've always been a tomboy and we've always loved traveling. That's the thing. And I met Cam, who's my husband now, when we were 19, and he was the same. He just had this passion for adventure, actually, and meeting different people from all around the world. So we spent a lot of time traveling because that's what we love doing. So, yeah, and it was always off the beaten track, which is what we love. We'd go sort of our first trip, we went to Europe, as you do after you finish uni. And instead of sort of traveling, through Germany and, all the usual countries, we ended up going through the Middle East, which we absolutely loved. So,
wow.
Yeah, that's kind of, we always like just doing something a little bit different.
All right. So take us then to a life-changing moment for you, if you're comfortable to talk about this.
Yeah.
It's so you and Cam, childhood sweethearts, if you like, young
lovers,
and you end up having children together.
Yes. Yes. So we had 3 boys. We have 3 boys.
Your beautiful boys, yes. Also outdoorsy, if anyone's following along with you on Insta. And you guys go on a holiday to Thailand.
Yes, I know. I couldn't believe it because we wanted to kind of instill our love of travel in the kids. You know, that's what I always dreamed we would do. I always wanted to travel with them and take them to, you know, pretty crazy places, like remote places like where Cam and I visited. And it's so frustrating actually because we were going to take them to Ethiopia. That was our plan. We were going to fly to Egypt and then fly down to Ethiopia. But at the time, it was too dangerous to take them to Egypt. There was a lot of unrest in Cairo. So that's why we chose Thailand. Because, you know, we figured out it's close, lovely people, great food. So, so we flew to Phuket and we started heading north and we found this really nice hotel. It was essentially in the middle of nowhere. And it was our second day there and one of the kids spotted a observation deck. So we all went up there to have our drink, our juice, and look at the view. And I leant on a railing, and it had dry rot, and I didn't realise. So I fell 6 metres and, broke my back and sustained numerous other injuries. So I can't say it was my favourite holiday.
Well, I imagine that it is certainly not your favourite holiday.
No.
It's an extraordinary thing to have happened to anybody. I imagine that it's one of those things where most of us, and I have a love of travel as well, Sam, where we go off on these adventures and then we never think that anything like that could happen in our lives.
No, but it was I think I was so angry at myself. It's like, why did I lean on the railing? Like, it was just, I don't know, it was such a silly thing to have happened.
Yeah.
But, you know, I guess it was just a freak accident. And I'm so thankful that one of the kids didn't lean on the railing. Or can, actually. If one of us had to fall, I'm glad it was me.
Oh, well, look, I'm not glad that it was any of you.
But
put that out there, and I am incredibly sorry that it happened to you. And I hope in talking about this that it doesn't, bring up terrible memories as well.
No, it doesn't. Well, actually, no, I don't have any memory of the accident. My last memory is going swimming in the morning with the kids, and then ordering a juice, and that's it. So I don't remember going up the stairs or obviously leaning on the railing. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy how your brain can just wipe out memories.
And just protect you maybe, from that moment.
Yeah, maybe,
Yeah. And so how long were you, obviously you're in a hospital in Thailand. How long were you in a hospital in Thailand for?
I was in hospital for about 3 weeks. So, after my accident, obviously they called an ambulance and they took me to like a regional hospital. And essentially I'd fractured my skull and I was bleeding from my head and I feel so bad. Cam was told me they were shaving my hair, obviously to stitch me up. And I was being rude to them. I can't believe it. And I can't believe I was like not telling them off, but perhaps I was. So they x-rayed me there as well and realized that my injuries were pretty severe. So we drove about 3 or 4 hours up to a private hospital in a place called Bangsapan. And I spent about a week and a half there. And then I was transported to Bangkok and spent a week and a half there as well, and then flew home.
Yeah. And in some ways it must have been a huge relief, I guess, to get back to home, New South Wales.
Yes, come back to Sydney.
Yeah.
I mean, they were lovely in Thailand. And honestly, because I hit my head when I fell, so I had like subdural and extradural bleeds, like just bleeding on the brain. And so my memory's a little bit sketchy, to be honest. I think the headaches were like the most insane thing I've ever experienced. So I think they'd come in. I remember the nurses would come in and just inject some sort of painkiller. So I was a little bit out of it. So my memory's not great. But I just remember being in Bangkok though. And I'd get taken down. We were down to like this physio room. And the physio, he was so lovely, and he'd like get me to lift like these super light weights. And I think he'd be counting, and then we'd get to 20, he'd be going, 20! And he was so lovely. And I remember that. But other than that,
wow.
it's pretty, yeah, it's amazing, like how your memory can just go.
Yeah, wow. I guess because your story is so extraordinary, it actually, you and Cam, so Cam's a photographer and
Yes.
your hubby, and he took the most stunning photographs of things that were about to happen when you got home. So you get home and understandably you're feeling completely lost, I'm guessing.
Yes. Yeah. Oh man. Because when I got back to when I flew back to Sydney, because this will sound really strange, but when I was in Thailand, I actually didn't know I was paralysed.
Probably a lot of painkillers, Sam.
Yeah, it must have been. They must have really given me a heap. No, because the doctors kept saying, "Oh, it's spinal shock," and they're like, "Oh, in like 6 weeks or so, it will kind of get better." So that was in my head. I'm like, "Yeah, okay, I can do that. That's fine." So it wasn't until I got back to Sydney, and that's when the doctor told me that I would essentially never walk again. So yeah, I was devastated. Like I've never felt like that in my life. Like so sad and so angry, and wish I'd died. And yeah, I wasn't in a good space at all. So I spent about 7 months in hospital. So yeah, like when I came home, that was probably the hardest period out of all of it, because that's when my reality set in. And man, I was like, oh, this is my new life, and I hated it, to be honest. So yeah, I was in a very, very dark place.
Yeah, and understandably so, because it's life altering, and
100%.
yeah, and I can't imagine how long it takes to really acknowledge, I guess, that this is not going to change.
Yeah.
Yeah, but a big change for all of you, for your whole family, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I felt so guilty. Like guilt has just played a huge role in it for me, because before I went to Thailand, I was always happy and, be playing soccer and riding skateboards and going surfing and, just doing fun things. And when I came home, I was just so sad. I wasn't the same person. It was almost like my whole identity had been taken from me. Instead of being like, yeah, like a super chilled mum, I was just sad. I was just sad and grumpy. So that was hard. That was hard for the kids.
Yeah. Yeah, and hard for you too. It's a really interesting thing that I speak to so many extraordinary women on this podcast who've gone through very, very different things, a lot of very diverse kind of experiences. Yeah. The one thing that I find unifying and really interesting is that all women who are mothers tend to carry this enormous guilt about our responses or reactions to things so out of our control.
Yeah, I know, but you can't help it though.
Yeah, right. It's kind of inbuilt, and so you've come home, you find yourself learning to navigate a world suddenly in a wheelchair, not the way that you used to be living your life, and angry, upset, understandably bloody so. And then, so tell us about this little creature who comes into your life and kind of started to make a big difference to you, but also to the whole family.
Yes, she did. So I was home for about 3 months, and yeah, like I said, in a terrible, terrible headspace. And my middle son Noah and I went to my mum's house for lunch. And I wasn't driving at the time, so Mum had to drive us home. And then when we went out to Mum's car, Noah spotted a little baby magpie that had been blown out of her nest. And she was so small and so vulnerable. And we thought if we left her there, she may have died. So obviously we picked her up and brought her home. And yeah, she just brought happiness into our house, which was so lacking. And I think for me, the one thing I really loved is everybody, including myself, we put all our energy and focus into her, because she was so tiny and she needed to be fed every 2 hours. And so I think that's what I really loved. Everyone would come up, like, obviously come and see us, but it was kind of like they were actually coming to see Penguin and not me, which I absolutely loved, because I don't like being center of attention, and I didn't like people coming up and going, oh, how are you and what have you been doing, and all those kind of, and I didn't like the look of pity people would give me. So when we did find Penguin, no one cared about me. Though everyone was just putting all their focus onto her.
I think that's so beautiful, and that's the thing, right? I think that I was saying to you before we even started recording this that you guys actually feared me from a fear of magpies, because when I and it was one of my children who actually said, "Oh, you have to jump onto this Instagram page. You're going to love it." And I just was so enamored by your relationship with Penguin, this little magpie, who have a terrible reputation in this country, by the way, of always being terrible and swooping and whatnot, right?
Absolutely. No, they are terrifying. I agree. They can be scary.
But your little Penguin comes into your life, and she kind of wasn't taking no for an answer, though, really, was she?
No, not at all. No, she kind of ruled the roost in a weird way, So no, she just had a really beautiful personality. She was very quirky, very cheeky. She was very affectionate, actually, which I loved. I mean, she was like, we would spend all day together, especially when she was little. She'd just always be on my lap or sitting on my beanie, and I'd just be like wheeling around. And I love hanging out with her, and I love talking to her. I used to whinge to her all the time. So maybe that's why she left in the end. She was like, enough complaining.
It's funny that you say that, but I actually really think, and it's funny that I fell in love with a magpie who lived in my garden, whom I called Maggie, who I never fed her. I don't know why. She just kind of took to me. And it was sort of around the same time when my mum had passed away, and she just started coming and knocking on the window, and I would open the window and she just kept talking to me. And people,
really?
Yeah, friends would come over. My partner was witnessing this going, this is unbelievable. Where is she coming from? Like, I have no idea. But I do wonder with you and Penguin, and this is because Penguin sort of was so in love with your whole family unit, that do you wonder if when you were kind of doing okay, when you started to feel a bit like, okay, I can do this, do you think then she felt like I can go now?
Yeah, maybe, because it's funny you say that, because she was with us for 2 years. And then when she did leave, I was in a much better headspace. I was over in Italy competing with kayaking for world championships. So, yeah, maybe she did. Maybe she's like, yeah, I've done my job, so I can go. Yeah,
yeah. That her mum Sam was going to be just fine, because I think
yeah.
Yeah,
I think you're right.
Yeah, it's quite extraordinary. So, whose idea was it? Obviously Cam just like taking photos, and he caught some beautiful, candid, gorgeous shots of the boys with Penguin and you with Penguin and him. But whose idea was it to sort of turn this into, or to share Penguin with the world? So, the Instagram page, to write the book.
Well, it was a bit of a joke actually to begin with, because like you said, Cam was a photographer. He can't help himself but take like squillions of photos. And the boys said, "Oh, why don't we start an Instagram page?" And we called it Penguin the Magpie. So it was just for a bit of fun. And then somehow an ABC journalist, I don't know if they stumbled across the Instagram page, and they wrote a story about it. And that's when it all started going a little bit crazy. We thought it was hilarious, because we were like, Cam was getting like messages of people wanting to do a story on us, and we're like, "Are you serious?" Like we're just a normal family who happen to have a little magpie as a pet. Well, not a pet, but who has a little magpie living with us. So yeah, that's how it came about. And then Cam got some people, like some publishers, calling him saying, "We want to do a story, a book," and and obviously Cam was just like, "Hey, you got to be kidding! Like, who wants to buy a book with photos of our family in it?" So yeah, it was quite funny. And then the ABC reached out, HarperCollins, and Cam was talking to one of the publishers, and Cam's like, "Well, why don't we tell Sam's story?" And she was like, "Well, who's Sam?" Because people had no idea, unless you were friends with family. No one had any idea what had happened, like about my accident, because I used to say to Cam, "Sure, you can take my photo with Penguin, but don't shoot the wheelchair."
Wow.
So it was, I know, because I was embarrassed.
Oh, do you know what, Sandra?
Yeah.
I'm so in love with this book, and some of the most beautiful images are you in that chair, right? It is beautiful.
I know. I gave up in the end. I'm like, yeah, okay, shoot, yeah, whatever. But yeah, to begin with, no one knew about my story. And then
Yeah.
Cam reached out to a friend, Bradley Trevor Grieve, he's an Australian author, but he lives in LA. And, Cam said, like, Bradley, what do you think? Like, should we sort of do a book? And Cam said, do you want to write it? And so that's how it came about. So Bradley said, he was happy to write the book. And so he sort of used Penguin as a vessel to tell my story, which is really clever. So that's how it all started.
And it's so stunning. And I love that you're so humble. Who's going to want to read a book about and look at pictures of me and my family? And yet your book's been living on my coffee table for the longest time. It's just so beautiful. So I was super thrilled when I heard that this was going to be made into a film, because to me, it's just an extraordinary story. It's a love story. And there's a love story on so many layers. I think that's what I love. I love the love story of you and Cam. I love the love story that you all have as a family. I loved the love story of Penguin and what she brought to the family. I think it's just an extraordinary story. How did it feel for you guys? I mean, how does that happen? I was actually talking to a friend of mine about this when I found out you were going to come on the podcast. And I actually said to her, I can't, how does one feel when someone reaches out and go, by the way, your life's so incredible, I want to make it into a Hollywood film?
It was pretty bizarre. It was funny because a friend of Cam's, Emma, she's a producer. She's best friends with Naomi. So Emma gave the book Penguin Bloom to Naomi, and it really resonated with her. So Naomi, she also has 2 kids, and she's like, I want to play Sam and I want to produce this film. So yeah, of course it was strange because, like I said, we're just us.
But very bloody cool. I mean, it's not every day that you go. Cool. And of course, we're talking about Naomi Watts, who stars in this film.
Yes, Naomi Watts, yes.
And the portrayal is so incredible, so brilliant.
Yeah. She did a great job.
Yeah, she's an extraordinary actress. She really is. How did it feel? Because you guys spent a bit of time together, obviously. So and I've seen beautiful shots of you two together. I think, was that a really important part of her telling this story for you?
Yes, definitely. We did spend a lot of time together. And actually before I met Naomi, because she was so busy before she came to Australia, shooting other things, I used to write a lot of things down on my phone, just in notes, and it was very repetitive. It was very dark, obviously a lot of guilt. And I sent it to Naomi because I figured if I sent her what I'd written, then she would understand, how I was feeling and all that. So that really helped her. So that helped her get inside my head. And then, obviously when we met, we'd spend hours just talking, and I was on set a lot. Because they actually filmed it in our house.
Yes, I know.
Which is kind of strange because they came in and they totally redecorated it and made it a little bit darker and, so it sort of set the mood. And so I spent heaps of time on set with Naomi, which I was really grateful for because she'd be like, okay, can you come and watch me transfer, from the bed to the wheelchair and get dressed? And because she wanted to make it authentic, which I was super grateful for.
Yeah, incredible. And there is a sense of that definitely in the film for those of us who don't know you, but you feel, I think she portrays the grief and the anger and the sadness and and then later though the hope, all of that stuff is
of course, so
beautiful. Yeah.
No, it's funny because my sister goes, oh my God, Naomi pulls the exact same expressions as you. But she did. She looked really angry and really sad a lot, which, she kind of nailed it. Because I was really sad and I was really angry for a long time. So, it's good. Before they optioned our book and to make it into a film, that was the one thing I said to them. I was like, it's fantastic you want to make a film, but you have to keep it honest and keep it real. And I'm grateful they did. I didn't want them, I didn't want Naomi at the end of the film like going, yay, life's great. It's sure it gets a little easier, but it's always going to be a challenge and it's never perfect. So, yes.
And they certainly did not in any way Disneyfy that.
No.
Right. Thank goodness. So
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. Wow. Yeah, completely blown away. And I was really thinking about that process of how was it for the whole family to see yourselves portrayed on the big screen?
Oh, it was pretty awesome. I mean, it was crazy. Yeah, we were all so excited, and yeah, it was fun because at the they premiered at the Open Air Cinema in Sydney, which was pretty amazing. You could see the Opera House and the Harbour Bridge in the background. It was a wonderful night. Yeah, we all really loved it, and the boys were pretty chuffed. And yeah,
Oh, that's
crazy,
beautiful.
crazy, crazy.
Beautiful. Oh, incredible. One of the other things I wanted to have a chat with you about is that you get stronger. Obviously, you've gotten stronger over many years, and that you, as I said, can't keep a good woman down. I tell you, because you've reinvented yourself as this incredible athlete. And one of the things more recently that I saw is that you've actually been featured in a new book,
Yes.
which is Women Making Waves, obviously about women in surfing. And how was that experience?
I was so stoked. I mean, how cool is that? Like, I'm like next to Steph Gilmore and like all these awesome chicks from all around the world. Yeah, that was amazing. It's a fantastic book. Have you seen it?
I have seen it. It is
Yes,
stunning.
it's really cool.
It's beautiful. The images are beautiful.
The images are
Yeah.
beautiful and the stories are amazing. So yeah, I was really happy. I was really happy with the way they told my story, and yeah, it was great. I'm so stoked to be in that book.
That's so
Yeah,
incredible,
that
isn't
meant
it?
a lot.
And I loved that you were included in the book because I think what it proves to the world is that, not every surfer is the same and not every surfing
Exactly.
chick is the same.
Yeah.
That the stories of how you all came into the surfing world is different.
Yeah, no, I loved it. I mean, yeah, like you said, everybody has a different story. And, you don't have to be a professional, like amazing surfer to be, to still get out there and just have fun and
I
fall in
so
love with
love that.
surfing in the ocean.
I so love that because we have this is part of a platform for women beyond 40 and we have a little magazine, and one of the chicks who wrote for the magazine was really impacted by the bushfires in Malakuta, but she's a surfer.
Right. Okay.
And a really fabulous photographer took a photo of her sort of on the beach, and things were fairly red and dark at that time. And I think that image always when I see that image, I realize how much the ocean and the beach means to some people, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've grown up at the beach, so it meant everything to me. It was always my happy place. If you're having a bad day or if the boys were driving me a little nuts, I used to just grab my board or just go for a swim and you just get in the ocean and you just, some sort of healing powers.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful because you guys still live right near the ocean, don't you? You're not too far away. Yeah.
No, we're like a couple of minute walk.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, which is kind of good. It's actually a bit bittersweet though, because that was the thing. When I came home, we overlooked my favourite surf spot at North Bulgola.
Oh.
So I found that really challenging. Like I'd be essentially stuck here. It was like I was on house arrest. I'd be stuck here and look out over the beach and go again, that would be like a trigger to make me so sad and angry because I was like, if I wasn't like this, I know exactly where I'd be. I would have been off the rocks at North Bulgola having a surf.
Yeah, wow.
So, yes, it was quite bittersweet.
Yeah, and eventually though, a lot of grit and a lot of determination. You are back in the surf and doing things that you really love, right? So parasurfing and kayaking and canoeing.
Yeah. So the kayaking came first because when I was in rehab, I used to, I remember I would complain. I must sound like the biggest whinger, but I used to say, well, I can't surf, I can't mountain bike, I can't, there was a huge list of what I couldn't do. And so that's why I said maybe I could kayak. So the sports recreation officer at rehab, he's so fantastic. So he was the one who pushed me into it. And yeah, I'm so grateful I did because that's how I met my coach, Gay Hatfield, who is an absolute legend. She just means the world to me. And so it was just fun. It was fun not being, I call it my prison. The wheelchair is like a prison. So when I'd be on the water kayaking, I was like free from my personal prison. So yeah, that was really great. But it took me 5 years to get back out on a surfboard.
Yeah, wow.
I did have one go. It was my first summer, and we're up at Palm Beach, which is a local beach. And a friend of mine was out there on his board, and he's like, "Come on, Sam, you used to surf, have a go." And I'm like, "No." And then he convinced me. He pushed me on a wave. I'm like, "No, that's not surfing." So I didn't get on a board for 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. How I got back into surfing though?
How?
This is the one thing I've learned, I think, since my accident, is like there are so many kind people out in the world, and it's like a simple act of kindness can totally change your life. So I got a letter of the mother of a professional surfer, of Julian Wilson's mum, Nola, who's again the most amazing lady ever, and she sent me this beautiful letter encouraging me to get back out in the ocean, because she's like, the ocean will help you heal.
Oh.
So I owe so much to Nola. So then, I read it and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to give it another go.
That's incredible. That is
Isn't
so
it incredible?
incredible.
It's such a simple act, yet it has totally changed my life for the better.
Oh, you know what? And I love that. Like, one of my biggest things is that women are extraordinary to women. And I hate this bullshit narrative that women are not good to each other. But you say it was such a simple act, but for her to sit down and really think about you and give you that message from her heart,
I know,
is mind blowing.
It is mind blowing.
Beautiful.
I know. I can't believe it. And she even came. She didn't come to my first competition, but she came to the second one. And she's the most amazing lady ever. It's incredible. And so, and then even when I was in California for the World Championships, her other son, Bart, he lives in California, and he came down and, just to support me. And they're an amazing family.
I love that so much. And I imagine that you are surrounded by a group of cheerleaders now who, right? Your beautiful coach and other people along the way.
Well, I'm just extremely lucky. I'm so lucky to have come across the most incredible women. And it is true. Yeah, you're right. So Gay, my coach, kayak coach, and then Nola, and then a friend now who's my personal trainer, Mandy.
Wow.
Again, she's a super powerful, doesn't take, she's pretty blunt and she's hilarious. And it's just these three ladies have just made my life like so much better.
Oh, I love this so much. And so, what's next for you, Sam? What's next for you?
Well, I have a competition on Saturday.
Wow.
So, it's for the Australian parasurfing titles. So that's going to be fun because there's actually a lot more people competing this year.
Wow.
Which will be really great. Yeah. So actually it's going to be super challenging because, for the last 5 years, I've had Cam in the water with me. Like his job was to push me onto the waves and essentially get me back out, like duck dive and whatnot. And I was in Hawaii in June. And for the last World Championships, which I didn't even win, I changed my technique a bit. I'd dig my arm into the water to try and turn my board easier. And so before I went to Hawaii, I think it was a week before, they're like, "You're actually looking a lot stronger, so we're going to reclassify you." I was like, seriously? So 2 days before the competition, they took me into a room. They're like, "You're looking really strong, and now you have no help in the water." I was like, what? I know. It was like for 5 years, all I'd had Cam with me.
Yeah.
And 2 days before the comp, I was like, wow, I'm on my own. So I was kind of freaking out, to be honest. I'm thinking, oh, no. And now I'm thinking, okay, you just have to catch one wave so you don't make a total fool of yourself. And then it was funny because then I totally flipped my whole mindset. And I thought, well, what's the one thing that you've wanted to do ever since your accident? And that's to surf on my own. Right. And I figured I was in Waikiki and the competition was at Queen's. I'm not sure if you heard of that break.
Yes.
Queen's is the most incredible break. Like, it's all flat water and then there's this little reef and it just sort of, there's this beautiful wave which breaks
Oh.
out there. So I thought I have nothing to lose. And I was up against, actually, it was funny, I was up against the world champion from my new classification. So I was thinking, well, I'm sure Sarah will absolutely whip my butt. So I went out there and I was just super fortunate, and I was in the right spot at the right time and caught a couple of really good waves. And so I beat her.
Wow.
Which I couldn't believe. Yeah, I know.
Oh, wow.
So stoked. I was like, wow. So, yeah. So that's my new classification now. I'm on my own. So
you're incredible.
I'm hoping Saturday won't be really big, dumpy surf, because that's going to be super hard to try and get out.
I'm keeping all my fingers crossed for you.
Yeah, so am I.
And look, if there's anyone who can get out there and whip surf's butt, it'll be you. So I think you are extraordinary. You blow my mind. I love everything that you're doing, and I know that you are an extraordinary inspiration to other people out there that, they can get out and actually live their life as well.
Yes, I think that's the one thing, actually, like from the movie and the books, it's the one thing I've actually really loved, is like just getting messages from people. And I don't like the word inspiring, but I love the fact that I encourage them, to make the most of their life. And sure, everyone has challenges and whatnot, but it's just nice to know that, you can still do pretty amazing things, even when your life doesn't turn out like you thought it would.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm hugely grateful for your time today, and I know you're really busy and that you're going to have to fly now. You're an incredible person. Thank you so much for your time and your brilliant energy today, and for sharing your story.
Thank you, and I'm so stoked you like the books and the movie.
Absolutely loved.
And the fact that you like magpies now.
I do. I absolutely do love Magpie. One of these days I'm going to convince one to come into the house. It's going to happen.
Absolutely. Just give us some food. Then they'll be a friend forever.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. Thanks for listening to the Good Girl Confessional podcast. The Good Girl Confessional podcast is brought to you by WB40, Women Beyond 40 magazine. Available now at WB40.com. The Good Girl Confessional podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you listen to quality podcasts. We're also now available on YouTube. We chat with really interesting women about their hard-won wisdom, but it really helps us if you can subscribe, like, and share the podcast. Thanks so much for your support. Bye for now.